So to get the pump off of the vehicle, I pulled off the upper half of the fan shroud, pulled the fan off the water pump using a large crescent wrench. It is a right-hand thread, and another tool to hold the pulley. And when you get to the power steering pump, there's 3 bolts right here. After the pulley's off, those are easy to get to. There's another one. There's a stud and a nut back there. It's kind of hard to see, but it's down low next to the damper. There's another stud and a nut back there under the exhaust manifold, and then that pump will come right out. Of course, you have 2 hose connections, and then it's on the bench to disassemble. I do have the water pump out. It's not a necessary step for this process. It was just leaking and time to replace it anyway. So just wanted to say that's going to look a little different because the pump will still be there. Hey guys, working on a 97 GM Suburban. This is the EVO variable pressure power steering pump. Just wanted to show what you'll find when you get into this and what my solution is. To get the pump off the vehicle, I used a Lyle 39,000 pulley puller, and there's a couple snap rings that remove this solenoid from the valve assembly. These threads will be into the pump, and then the last thing you'll pull out of there is a spring. This regulator assembly I have disassembled to clean it. There's a screen on the end of this fitting that was pretty much clogged, so I pulled that apart, clean it out. But that's what you'll find. And my solution, I pulled this flow control fitting out of a Dodge pump that I had laying around. As far as I can tell, it's all the same dimensions. It takes the same hose fitting, and then I'll be using a 1996 model pressure hose for the same Suburban vehicle, and that will eliminate that EVO valve, which on this vehicle, going into corners at speed, it would become very twitchy. The valve was opening and closing at 45, 50 miles an hour, and it's just kind of annoying to drive. So going to eliminate that, eliminate a leaking hose, and hopefully have a good solution here. This is what the pump will look like with the new fitting. This is what it used to be. So now your hose will come in to the back of the pump instead of into the front of this fitting. So the direction of your pressure hose will be 180 degrees off on that end, which is why I will be using a 96 model hose. To remove this valve, I pulled these snap rings off. This electric solenoid will slide right off. This piece, you'll need a 19mm deep socket that will unthread There's a needle valve inside there, and then you'll need a 30mm socket, and this will spin independently when you unscrew this piece and these threads out of the pump. So if you have a 97 through 2000 GM truck or SUV, and you have really twitchy, unusual steering characteristics, this valve is probably the issue. From my research, everything to do with this system has been discontinued. The only solution GM offers is the metal tube that replaces this valve, and I even tried to find a fitting, flow control fitting from a 96 at the local dealer. They said that was discontinued as well. You could source a fitting or a complete pump from the junkyard and accomplish the same thing. There's other sensors, and the computer controls this based on speed and steering input, and I haven't found any other way to alleviate the problem other than to eliminate this part of the system completely. The only purpose of it was to make your steering easy for maneuvering at low speed parking lot situations, and then once you get over a certain speed, your computer closes this valve so you don't have so much pressure going to the steering box. Gives it a little heavier steering feel for higher speed. So this is my solution. Hopefully this will help somebody out. So the only difference I can find between these two flow control fittings, on this GM one, that hole diameter is about 35 thousandths of an inch. On the Dodge fitting, the hole is about 55 thousandths. So the rest of it seems to be all the same. Here's a view of what the 96 high pressure hose fits like on a 97. Goes into the steering box as it should. The 180 bend in the tube down there fits into the back of the pump, so no issues there. So you eliminate the EVO valve with this hose. So we've driven the vehicle for several thousand miles after eliminating the EVO valve, and no issues. The first few times driving, you notice at higher speed that the steering feels a little bit lighter, but otherwise no difference, and definitely no twitching issues going around corners at speed. So again, you can do this just by buying the aftermarket part that replaces the EVO valve, and you can use your stock high pressure hose. I changed out my hose because it was leaking anyway, so this worked out well for me.